Innovation is in our veins. Soon the whole world will know our names. Sharing our knowledge and freedom reign. We here for the people, you know it's our way. Setting foundations is part of the dream. It doesn't matter if you're new to the game. Listen up now, cause we all gon' say, elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we all gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Welcome to the Elevate Podcast, everyone. It's so great to have you all on one more time. It's your boy Josh.
And Reg.
And we're grateful to be back on with you yet again. Well, coming off a very hot week, and we're a little hot under the collar ourselves. Lots going on, including finding a good chunk of our MPs are all colluding with foreign actors, and no one seems to give a crap. And that with so much more, obviously, different things happening in the country, like, Calgary not having any water. Wild. Welcome to Canada in 2024. So much going on. Reg, how you feeling, big dog?
I'm feeling wild. I'll have to say, it's been a wild time. I was saying that they've got all the roads tore up right now. It's construction season in Halifax. I don't know if that's the same for everybody else across Canada, but it certainly is here. And with all that being tore up, it makes it really challenging to ride a motorcycle on, because it's like trying to ride on marbles. So had a close call, and I was just like, woo! I might have been featured in the news here.
Oh, no.
If we're not too careful. But yeah, and sometimes it's not the road conditions. Sometimes it's not even the motorcyclists. Sometimes it's the other drivers that just...
They freak out themselves.
They I don't know what it is that happens. They don't know what to do once they hit that pavement to dirt, because they're going to repave, and then they put on the brakes, and I'm like, we can't go from 110, 115 to zero. Yeah. Just can't do that. Yes, so I'm a little shaken. So
yeah, I'd be too, man. Yeah. It's one thing for it to happen in a car when someone does that to you, and that's frustrating as it is. But when you're on a motorcycle and that happens, it's a whole different game.
Yeah, no protection, right? So you're just like, whoo, just out here raw dogging life.
Just out here living your best life. Oh, we love to see it, man. Well, first off, we're glad that you're alive. That's important. That's what's most important these days. And with that, we'll just dive right on into it, because there's just a little too much to get into.
Yeah, well, let's start with a few things that are in the news that are happening. So,
do you really want to bury the lead? You want to bury the lead?
I do, because there's just too many things right now. I'm gonna tantalize you.
That's not on me. That's on Reg.
So first off, France going to a snap election. People are pretty upset over there. Macron says that he needs to call an election this after the UK saying that they need an election. So who knows? Maybe we can follow suit and call our own election, but that's wishful thinking. Also quickly, so we all saw last week that the Bank of Canada said that interest rates are coming down by 0.25%.
Called it.
And like we said, always follow the banks, because they seem to know what's up. And of course, you can be sure that Chrystia Freeland got out there to be like, our plan is working. And we obviously know that it's not. But they're just trying to save what little bit of the economy we have left. Also, the WHO decided that they're going to pass some sweeping resolutions on vaccine mandates on the bird flu. Apparently, there was their first reported death down south of the border. I think maybe a little farther south than the U.S. I think it was down in Mexico, first person passing away from this new strain of bird flu. So keep your eyes on that one, because apparently now we've got all these countries signing on to say that, yes, vaccines are going to be important. And we'll see what that means. Because I don't claim to be an anti-vaxxer, but I also am a lover of bodily autonomy. So if you don't want one, I don't think you should have to have one. And if you do want one, all the power to you. Go grab one. So just kind of these things that we have to keep an eye on, because, it might get worrisome when people start dictating what you can and cannot do with your own body. And then the last thing that I'll just bring up in the news. So Loblaws. We know that we had the boycott Loblaws. Their stock price reached an all-time high, and people are finding this very disheartening, because they said, we boycotted Loblaws. What the hell? We have to remember, prices are still going up. Freeland can get out there and tell you that, it went down from 2.9 to 2.7. That's inflation. But it still means it's going up. So your food prices still going up. So that means Galen and friends are still making money, and that means that the share price is still going to keep going up. So what is interesting to note about that one, to give you a little more hope, is that there's been a number of articles, a number of folks I've actually talked to personally that have actually noticed that because of the boycott, more folks actually went to local vendors. And what we're seeing is we're actually seeing more money being distributed back to them. So even though the stock price went up, even though it didn't have like the massive slam dunk effect that we were all hoping for, I think we need to go back and celebrate the little wins, because there has been a number of articles come out of interviews with folks who are small business owners, who are farmers markets. I think even Farmers Markets of Nova Scotia, that's a organization that kind of advocates on behalf of all the farmers markets in our province. They actually put out a statement saying that, this is actually something we're seeing improve on a community level. So whether you're out there boycotting or not, that is what was in the news for the past week. And then the big stories, though, coming out, that's what we want to get into. So thanks for holding with me. Take her away, Josh.
Yeah, I got that one out of the system, man. All right, let's move on here. So we're going to start off with this because your boy was passionate. Your boy got on Twitter or X, whatever you want to say. And I put out a very bombastic tweet on behalf of our podcast over the weekend. And I said this, or I should say we said this. Until the names are released, these people, all 338 MPs are guilty of treason in our book. And yes, even the ones we like. Because an egregious fracturing of trust demands a radical harshness.
Speak your truth, man. Speak your truth. We got some heat for that one a little bit of pushback, but I know that you put it out there. I support it, though. I think that the fact that how are we supposed to trust anyone if nobody's releasing these names? And I think that the problem is that anybody becomes a suspect, anybody becomes guilty. And then those who are not releasing the information or who are supporting those who are not releasing the information are then guilty by association. That's my thought on it. Because I know that like we had some folks come to us and say, well, what about these people who don't even know, don't have the power to know? And it's like, you know what? I feel for them, but at the same time, they should be pushing on their leaders to say, get those names, release those names, push that forward. And if they're not out there advocating every single day for that, I still think they're guilty by association.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very terrifying situation that we're seeing in this country. This is something I never thought I would ever see in my days, personally, where we are at the point where there is a report that has shown multiple MPs colluding with foreign actors in this country, and they are not releasing the names, and the RCMP aren't doing anything about it. Our law agencies... there has not even so much as been an investigation announced into this yet. So yes, I'm a little ticked off. I'm a little heated. Well, Josh, it's unfair. The Conservatives, this party, they've only been around for I do not care. Let's talk about it. If you really want to get into it, this is one separate issue, which is likely, we're going to put it out there. This is likely mainly Liberal MPs. I'm sure there's going to be a sprinkle of other parties, but mainly Liberal MPs. But then let's get into India and China meddling in conservative leadership races. It all comes back together to this. Foreign interference happening way too much in this country. So all 338 of you are on the chopping block from my perspective. Until you get this together, how can I trust you? Let's use an example. People are really fired up and really annoyed at me for having this take. Well, I'll say this. Say you have a vat of wine, Reg. You're fired up. You're a wine drinker. You're in the beautiful Isles of France, drinking some wine. And I gave you this vat of wine. And I took a cup of horse manure and dumped it in. Would you drink the wine? Likely not. How about, what if it was a teaspoon of manure? Would you drink the wine? I don't know. Would you? I'll actually ask you that question. Would you still drink the wine if there's even a teaspoon of manure in that wine?
I could be very facetious and say, well, the alcohol is going to neutralize the... No, I would not drink the wine.
It's gross. It's gross. And that's kind of how I feel about this. It's about, we're looking at about 5% of MPs who are involved in this report. 5% too much. This is bonkers. This is ridiculous. And I think there should be natural distrust, period, through all this. And, I don't really care what the people, this is unfair to the MPs. I don't care. Do not care. You need to have some renewed hostilities then. If you're an MP who's not involved in this, you want answers, there should be renewed hostilities for this. For example, let's take our boy Ricky Perk, your MP here, here in Nova Scotia, St. Margaret's Bay. He had an interesting meeting with another situation happening with this government, another issue of conflicts of interest. This is a separate issue, but I really want to kind of play this out to kind of give you an idea of what I mean by renewed hostilities.
I don't need you to repeat Mr. Bain's talking points again. Who in your office told you that the CEO objected to the appointment of this chair because there was conflict? And did you have that report?
Mr. Chair, I do not recall any conversation around.
Boy, there must be something in the water at that ISED office where everybody has amnesia. Mr. Noseworthy has amnesia. Mr. Baines has amnesia. You have amnesia. Ms. Bueller has amnesia, who she talked to. If I wouldn't swear, you all work together in the Liberal Party and are covering up for something. Now,
that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. Obviously, this is a separate issue. We'll get into that later. But this is the type of hostility I want to see from MPs, putting pressure on whoever is the decision maker, which obviously is Trudeau in this case, to release the names. And the reason why I think it's on us as citizens to put pressure on all MPs, regardless of political stripes, is to make sure they do their jobs to put that type of hostility on the government and people who are responsible for this.
Well, what I think is also interesting is this is Jagmeet's opportunity to shine. He could come out and be like, we are forcing the government to either release the names or we're going to go to a vote of non-confidence. He could easily put that out there. And then he could come out there and look like a triumphant hero. And he's not going to win the election, but he'll save his seat. This is something that would actually save his seat, I think. Because right now what we're seeing is just a spineless, money grubby individual who's just there at Trudeau's beck and call. He actually has the most power out of anybody in all of those seats right now. And the fact that he's not doing anything, just if you're an NDP supporter, call those people up and be like, what the heck? Get something done. Because exactly, that's the kind of influence I want to see happening. This is the kind of pressure I want to see. I want to see this out of the Conservatives. I want to see this out of the NDP. I want to see this out of the Bloc. And so far, it's been very quiet. And I think, this is my reasoning for why I think this is so quiet, is I wonder if they themselves are now asking around the party, who is it? And I think that, like you said, I think this is why everybody's guilty. And to kind of expand on your wine metaphor maybe a little bit, I think it's more like you've got a wine cellar and you've got all these beautiful bottled aged wines in your wine cellar. But 16 of them to 20 of them are absolutely rancid, sour. You drink it, you're going to die. Are you going to trust any of those bottles of wine to open and try? Not until you have an inspector come down there and identify what ones are poisonous. And right now, that inspector should be the RCMP. CSIS knows. Why the hell is the RCMP not acting on this? And how is it that our Prime Minister has that much influence? And then you have the leaders of the opposition not calling for the RCMP. It's infuriating. And so for anybody to be like, you're getting a little too emotional about this, I'm like, how are you not?
Yeah.
How are you not?
Somebody has to be at this point. What is it? What is it going to take? Is it going to be the We Charity? Is it going to be the gag order on the results of the carbon tax? Is it ArriveCan? Is it SNC Lavalin? What's it going to take? Is it going to be the Federal Conflict of Interest Act sections 5, 11, 12, and 21? And accepting gifts that this Prime Minister has done? What is it going to take? Is it going to be shutting down bank accounts for people who go against the Prime Minister in his office? I got a list, and you're going to get really annoyed because it keeps going. Calling up subsect of our population Nazis because they go against the Prime Minister? What's it going to take? Is it going to be praising Castro after the day of his death and for everything he did for the Cuban people? What's it going to be? Is it going to be looking up to China for their basic dictatorship? Is it going to be bringing a Nazi into Parliament and praising him? Is it going to be sitting MPs actively working with foreign powers against the interests of Canadians in this scenario? Or is it going to be India and China meddling in conservative leadership races? What is it going to be that's going to get you emotional? What is it going to be for someone to step up and do something? Yes, it's going to be, in this case, it's going to be the show. I'm going to get very emotional. At some point, someone's got to get emotional. At some point, someone's got to say something. At some point, this cannot be normalized. They want to absolutely bombard you and normalize this behavior, and it's crazy. It is not right. It cannot be accepted. So yes, people who came at me in my DMs saying, you're all a little too emotional, that's not fair. I do not give a crap. Someone has to do it. Someone has to stand up. Canadians are way too nice, are way too settled. It's time for someone to take a note out of our neighbors to the south of the border and actually stand up to our government, because this is ridiculous.
Yep. Well, it's the whole reason why the French are going towards an election. That's why I kind of mentioned that in the beginning. It's because they are fed up. So what happened in France is basically Macron raised the retirement age, because he said, we don't have the funds to support retirement. We're raising the retirement age. Then goes out and spends a crap ton of money, no pun intended actually, on cleaning up the Seine, because they want to look good on the world stage, because they want to have the Olympics and the Olympians swimming in the Seine, which is the main river through Paris. And so the French people were absolutely livid. And they said, you are going to spend our money on cleaning up this river so that you can look good on the world stage, and then keep people working in their jobs longer while you spend our money. You know what? When you go for your swim, we're going to crap in the river, and you're going to have to deal with that. And so that actually, that issue was such a wedge that it actually forced him to say, you know what, we're going to have a no confidence election and force this election. People, haul down your pants and start crapping in the water, because honestly, we need that level of
Vitriol.
Yeah, we need something, because that's the big thing and I complain about my fellow Maritimers a lot, is because, over the years we've been crapped on quite literally by big corporations, by government, by polluters, by whatever. And then everybody just kind of is like, you know what, that's the way it is. And I'm watching that play out across Canada. It seems like the only provinces that aren't like that is Alberta and Quebec. We need some more Alberta and Quebec energy in this country. My God, this is bad.
Yeah. And that's what ticked me off and got me so fired up, was because of the idea that we got to trust our processes. What do you think is supposed to happen? What? Bro, we're beyond that right now. We're beyond processes at this point. We need action. We have two parties right now who are artificially keeping this party in power. Things would have been normal. If this was normal, we had to win an election years ago at this point. But reality is, we have the NDP and Jagmeet artificially keeping Trudeau in, wagging his finger from time to time, then pointing his finger at Poilievre, saying, oh, you got all these lobbyists, this, that, the other, look at this corruption in the Conservative Party. Look under your nose, big dog, and we know you all see it, but we know that you just want that pension so badly. But dang, if anyone comes at me saying, you're too emotional about this, then figure out what's going on. Take a look. You can't see the forest from the trees. When you look at history, it happens over a long period of time, big things that happen. And people think, it kind of started here, maybe it ended here. Who knows what it was for us? Maybe it was the trucker protest in 2022. Maybe it was the start of COVID. Whatever it may be, there's just been another grain of sand on the heap that's continued through, and it's getting bigger and bigger by the day, and people are getting fed up, including myself.
Well, I think it's another grain of sand on the pile of quicksand. And people are drowning in it. And that's the part where I can empathize with the everyday Canadian who are drowning, because they're like, I've got 3 screaming kids at home that before all this went to hell, I could afford. And I worked responsibly. I went to school. I'm an active contributor to society, and these taxes and these levies that the government has put on me, and now the rules, and you can't speak. And then if you say something that somebody doesn't like, now it's hate online. All of this garbage is just become so much that I think people have become numb and are disconnecting. And I ask you and I implore you to not do that. I know that that's kind of the way to go. And I know that a lot of people, that's how they cope, is they just have to turn it all off, throw in a funny TV show, and just try and disconnect. I'm asking you to reconnect and really connect with your neighbors, connect with your loved ones, connect with your MPs, connect with your politicians. If people can get out there and protest about a far off nation who's, you know, at war with another nation to the point where they're blocking streets, blocking trains, like shutting down Union Station, that's the kind of level of activism we need for our own country. Why is it good enough for somebody else, but not good enough for us? It's time to fight for ourselves.
Yeah. And I understand why people are freaked out by it, because the minute they do it, they'll be seen as white supremacists, Nazis, this, that, the other, like all the worst things in the book. So I get it. They have lives to think about, but the way of life that you've enjoyed may not be here tomorrow if you don't. And that's, you know, that's the scary part. And that's something that needs to be done. So,
well, it's like, I look at it almost like prevention versus treatment. Mm-hmm. And I say that coming from a healthcare background, because what we're seeing right now is we're seeing the disease progressing to a point where we're aware of it. We know that the disease is there. We're before being able to totally prevent it. But what we can prevent is a total breakdown and a death, basically. And so what I'm seeing is I'm seeing this political system right now is diseased, and we need to cut the cancer out and let this country heal. Because right now, if it keeps going, you know, it may not be death at this moment, and we may be all feeling just a little unwell and not, you know, like we're struggling. But if you let this disease progress, it's like, how much more immigration can we take before everybody's homeless? How much more tax can we take before everybody's broke? Like, how many more freedoms are we going to lose before you have thought police, basically? You know what I mean? It's like, you have to look at this and say, oh, you know, Reg, you're being hyperbolic. It's not. We're progressing along this path of this disease, and if it keeps going, it's going to make us sick and it's going to kill us. So we need to cut the cancer, fix this problem, and heal this country, because otherwise, like, we're all going down. Absolutely. And that's the way it is, unfortunately.
So another radical harshness from me. I think we need to break up the RCMP and start a new agency, because this is crazy, of the fact that so much has gone on and not even so much as looking into it has taken place. But, you know, we're going to kind of shoehorn and kind of figure out all these new laws around different, you know, things that happen around the world. But when something actually happens in our backyard, there's not enough there for us to kind of do any type of investigation. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what are you here for? What are we paying you? CSIS gave you everything on a silver platter. And you're just like, do your job. Oh, but I don't know if that'll look good if we just start arresting politicians. Look how corrupt they've all become. They're little criminals at this point. And not the type of criminals where, you know, when I was 6 years old, my grandfather's like, oh, all those politicians are criminals. They are literally criminals. They're literally colluding with foreign actors against the interests of us, of Canadians. China has a say. India has a say. Russia has a say. Canada, you don't get a say today. There's a big party and you ain't in it. Here we are, baby. So yeah, that's kind of a radical idea too. But I think it might need to happen because they're not doing their job. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's wild. This is the question, and if anybody knows, hit us up. Mm-hmm. Why is it that the RCMP is not acting? That is the $1 million question, because we had a conversation with Jennifer Allen over the weekend about this. And I was like, is there no treason in the criminal code? She's like, here it is. She pulled up like Canadian justice laws, like the actual documents. And she was like, there you go. Read through it. We're like, there's a very clear, I think it was like passage B. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what the number above that was, but we read it and we were like, oh, okay. So there it is. Like, you can actually see it. Why isn't the RCMP acting on this? Do they have to get permission from government? Because I understand too the argument that we don't want to have a government in power that can start arresting people because they don't like what they think.
Yeah.
I mean, then we're going down the whole like hate online speeches thing. That was a mouthful and a garbled amount of words there, but
we get you, man.
But you know what I mean? Like we're heading to a problematic state when we actually have governments that are allowed to arrest their competition. But that said, what is the accountability to governments in power or anybody in government if they break the law? If you break the law, you should be treated just the same as every other citizen, and there should be a burden of proof and evidence that has to then support your charges or being arrested. And that has to just take place in a country that has a rule of law. So I'm wondering, why is it that the RCMP haven't acted? And is there enough power from RPM right now to say, RCMP, don't act? And is that what's happening? If somebody knows differently, tell me, because that's what it looks like.
So this is the interesting part. I'm going to show you a 1-minute clip based on that. This is from Wesley Wark, who is an expert in national intelligence, terrorism. And this is his interview with CBC talking about this specific thing.
Back here, is it fair to call what's allegedly gone on, what's documented in the NSI COP report, is it fair to call that treason?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's very straightforward. There's, there are two parts to the law that, most Canadians may not understand. There's the Security of Information Act, which protects secrets and provides for criminal sanctions for breaches of secrets. We usually use that law in the form of espionage cases, let's say. There's also criminal code sanctions. They're kind of old and musty, to be honest, about what are called high treason and treason. But the treason offenses in the criminal code, which have been around for a long time, involve, for example, the unlawful communication of information to a foreign state in peacetime. So you have a piece of the criminal code that is there on the shelf, ready to be used.
And they don't use it. They haven't used it to this point. As you say, there are no foreign interference prosecutions really outstanding that we know of. The police won't even confirm if there's an investigation underway now with parliamentarians.
Right there.
Wild.
That shows you the corruption level. So that's why break it apart. That's just me, though.
Well, what do the other ministers have to say about this? Because that was also to bring a little lightness back to an otherwise crap storm of a situation. Because I saw a few things. What did you see?
Oh, what, you talking about Randy Boissonneau?
What?
Oh, baby. Yeah, that's another minister in the Liberal cabinet. He was in the Liberal cabinet. And he's now since stepped down. He stepped away a little bit. Turns out this man, as a minister, catch this, interesting news here. As a minister, had his own consulting company that was actively lobbying the government. And he caught in text messages demanding $500,000 wire transfer from the government.
Love it.
And he's
absolutely love that.
And when the documents came about, he's like, that was another Randy. That was a different Randy. What are we talking about here? He has two people in his company. Randy, and there's another man who's not named Randy. So who's the Randy we talking about here? Hilarious.
Well, you have to realize, like, sometimes the other dude likes to go by Randy as a nickname, so that's really what they're discussing. It's actually just it's all a fun ruse, but $500K, please.
It was crazy to me. I mean, this right now is in the courts at the moment for wire fraud, and fraud in general at the moment. But I'm like, this was giving me a little bit of hope that, hey, this guy's finally getting the boots kicked to him. But like this is what has been happening with this government consistently. And that's why people are losing their minds. How can this man be a minister and then have his own company on the side actively lobbying his government? Like, that's like, what? How did it take this long for it to come out? That's wild.
Yeah, well, you have to realize if anybody points anything out, then you'll just have the Liberal minister stand up and be like, oh, boo-hoo, they don't care. And that's the problem, is that they know that under this current regime that they have absolute autonomy to do whatever the heck they want. Like, demand $500K. It's wild.
Yeah. And it's very, very reminiscent of what Joe Biden did down in the States with, X amount to the big man. Those are the text messages that came out of, him colluding with foreign actors and getting money for it.
Wait. That was Hunter Biden colluding. And then when they were talking about the big man, they were talking about, he's like, I'm here with my dad.
Yeah, they're referring to Joe as the big man.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. Thank you for the clarification. But this is a learn from Hunter. This is how we do it here in the government. This is, learning from our counterparts down south of the border. We have Hillary Clinton come up doing speeches, we're learning some things. We're bringing American politics north of the border, right? This is how we do. This is what Randy did. So what a guy, but we're going to keep loving Michael Barrett, hammering on him too. Mm-hmm. Michael Barrett's been, as we're talking about renewed hostilities, he's being very hostile with the situation, as he should, which I'm happy to see.
Yeah, and that's one thing, I know we just said that all the MPs are guilty. But man, Michael Barrett, he might be the exception to the rule. Every rule has an exception. It might be Michael Barrett because he has been consistently hammering on this government, hammering on the leaders internally, just constantly trying to push things forward in a good way. And he's one person that kind of keeps me hopeful about the state of politics in this country, because I'm thank you, sir, for actually standing up for Canadians and for doing what needs to be done and for constantly being out there, even though he's you know what? I know that they're not going to charge anybody. I know that there's going to come to nothing. He's but Canadians need to hear about it and we need to bring it up. And you know what? Knowing that you're not going to win the battle, but fighting anyway, there's a lot to be said about that. Mm-hmm. He's because you know what? It's for the benefit of everybody to know. That to me, hats off to him.
Absolutely. He knows his role. He knows his power, which I appreciate, and him being honest about it. And he, as he said, fighting anyway. That's the type of stuff we're talking about when trust has been so fractured. It's MPs like him that help build that trust back up of no, this is all wrong. And I'm actually going to fight on behalf of my constituents and figure out what the heck is going on. I appreciate that about him. So, but Calgary, man.
Oh yeah, poor Calgary. If we have any of our Albertan listeners on here,
we're sorry.
You can relate to this.
Your mayor sucks.
Yeah,
sorry, your mayor sucks.
And what's happening there, to set it up a little bit, is they're doing some construction on the water main, and they've asked the residents of Calgary to reduce their water consumption while they work on this. And so this is actually something that they've been working on now for years. And so they had this failure with this water main, and they were you know what? We're gonna shut it down. We're gonna work on it. It's gonna be fine. We're just asking everybody to just contribute just a little bit, and we'll get there. And then if you're seen watering your lawn, or you're seen with an egregious use of water, you can be fined. Mm-hmm. And what's hilarious is that the mayor is now blaming it on Danielle Smith somehow. Yeah. That it's Danielle Smith's fault. When this is the legacy of Nenshi and all the others.
All your homies over there, all those NDP homies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we're loving it. And I had to laugh, and I clipped out a Twitter response that I saw. And it was great because he was just we can't even fix a water main, but we're going to change the climate. Don't worry. And I was oh, that's the truth, isn't it? Yeah. That's so good.
That just sums up the left completely in that tweet. And that's exactly it. Look how that city is starting to fall apart with some of the stupid things they're putting forward as policies in that city right now. And I'm a little close to it. I used to live there. I grew up in Calgary, and to see what it's become is such a joke. And I feel for Calgarians, man. This is tough. The fact you've been so limited in your water, and there's, the conspiracy theories are floating around. Could this be the start of them normalizing this behavior? When things do get fixed up, are they going to start trying to figure out ways to limit how much people can use in terms of resources? Maybe. I don't know.
Well, it's because it's one of those theories where it's well, if you were able to do it then, well, then why don't we just keep moving forward? And so my thought is one, I definitely think reserving water when it's being unnecessarily used, that's not a bad thing. Yeah. We definitely need to make sure that we're protecting our fresh water. This is egregious. This is not that. And yeah, they're saying another 5 to 7 days. We know with any kind of government contract construction process at all, you can probably tack another week on that. And the fact that they were saying they should be working around the clock. They should be pouring all the resources into this to make sure that they get this fixed. This is people's water. This is not a road. This is not something else that can wait. This is literally life-giving water. What are you doing?
On that note, though, yes, I agree. Pour all the resources you need into it, but keep an eye on all the transactions.
True.
We can have another COVID situation where it's like, oh, we just need to solve it right now, and just pour a bunch of resources in and money disappears. Keep an eye on the transactions as well.
Yeah, well, we don't need an arrive scan kind of like situation where it's just like, this app should have cost, what was it, like under $1 million, and now it's like 56 million or something stupid like that.
Yeah, I think it hit 80 million is what it hit.
Is that what they're up to now?
Yeah. Psychotic, dude.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so yeah, I agree. They should be working around the clock. They should be making it happen. The mayor was getting roasted about this. Like she wasn't even communicating when it all started. They were getting such little communication and figure out what's happening and when they can turn the water on, this, that, the other. And she came out like, oh yeah, we realized we haven't really been talking to you guys. Well, I will update you at 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. every day. Yeah, and so far, no news yet. that's what she said. I was like, what are we doing here, man? Unreal. I feel for you, Calgarians. We love you. Love from the Halifax coast over here. But man, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. And like I said, what do you do when you're trying to turn on the tap and you can't drink the water because you have to boil it, or you can't drink the water because it's not there?
Yeah.
Just wild. So I feel bad for you. We love you, as Josh said.
Yeah.
But, good luck.
Yeah.
Stay strong.
We'll be keeping an eye on the comments too. Love to see how everyone's fuming about your mayor. But dude, I had to put this in. I think it's really interesting news. The GameStop saga is making a comeback. Roaring Kitty, who is a Redditor, online personality, is trolling Wall Street like no tomorrow, dude. Are you watching any of this?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was actually looking at his position.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh man. I just love the fact that like people were commenting. They're like, he's not even invested. It's like, are you kidding me?
Oh, he's very invested. And we'll set up. I mean, to those who don't know, obviously we saw what happened way back, 3 years ago at this point, where this man was kind of posting his trades. People were copying them, and then they squeezed the hedge funds out of their short positions and drove the stock price through the moon, causing these hedge funds to lose billions and billions and billions of dollars. And they ended up taking Roaring Kitty in front of Congress. He had to testify, and then it all resulted in he only got like a slap on the wrist for anything, as he should have. Just like what they treat Wall Street, he should have got the same treatment. I'm glad he did for the most part. But and then he just disappeared for 3 years. Gone. And then he came back with this video. That's all he did. Just leaned forward in a chair. And GameStop went through the roof.
Yeah.
And now he's been streaming again. And what they've been doing is they've been timing his streams and essentially like setting all these stop loss and stuff to tank the price. And he's been just screwing with them. He was doing a 12:30 stream, or noon stream, and he delayed it till 12:30, and so the stock died at noon. He's like, "It's not me manipulating it. I didn't start streaming till 12:30," and then he just sat there in his chair for 10 minutes, just trolling them, just staring at his screen, dude. It's so awesome to see how just him exposing the system for what it is, and at the same time, seeing that stock go back up.
Yeah. Well, you know what he was doing? He was sitting there watching the stock price go back up again. Mm-hmm. Because that was the thing, is like he was being blamed.
Yeah.
And he's like, nope, watch this. Oh yeah, I've been following that one really closely. And it was funny because I was actually kind of like, I had a pretty good idea of what was happening as far as like why these hedge funds were losing so much money. Then I think it's Cancel This Clothing Company is the TikToker, Instagram guy.
Did a really good job.
He did a really good breakdown of explaining how they are lending money that doesn't exist and they're borrowing it from different folks, and then trying to sell the shares at a lower cost, all this stuff. And he breaks it down in such a good way that I can't even articulate the same way he can. Go watch that video.
We'll link it down.
We'll link it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so if you're unsure, like, how is this all working? Go watch his stuff because it's awesome. And it really kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And that's when because I was following the GameStop when it was originally happening. I was like, oh, okay, this is a meme. Like, you had Dogecoin coming out at the same time, and like everybody was all invested in NFTs. I was like, this is all just ridiculousness. But now it's good. It's good TV. I like watching it.
Absolutely. And I love that he's just screwing these big cats over again. Like, I'm here for it. I love seeing the small people get theirs again, and to see, to me, he's just a symbol for the regular folk, and they hate him so much. And the problem is, when you're dealing with someone he's clearly smart, he knows what he's doing, but you pair that with being a troll. They don't know how to deal with that, man. They don't know how to deal with that. So we're here for it. But to our final topic.
Yeah, the final one. So we kind of alluded to it a little bit in the very beginning. You may have heard of it. You may have missed this one a little bit. But there's a big fight in Parliament right now over the carbon tax report that came out from the Parliamentary Budget Officer.
Oh, surprise.
So Freeland comes out and she goes, there's an error. They included the big permitters in this. The big emitters. What's that other word I screwed up the other?
Especially.
Yeah, especially the big polluters. Anyway, the big polluters are apparently included in this, the big emitters. And so she has a problem with that. And then it goes on to describe the fact that we're not accounting for all the benefits of lowering carbon emissions in Canada and what that means for the ecology of Canada and what that means for the world even. And so, because Canada emits, what is it, 2%? Less than 2%?
1.5.
1.5.
7, something like that.
Yeah, less than 2% of all carbon emissions come out of Canada. But, we just got to sacrifice ourselves on the altar of carbon tax so that we can realize the benefits of a stabilized environment, was what they said. As if our less than 2% is going to somehow stabilize world emissions. Anyway, I digress. So,
but can't figure out a water main. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So Stephen Guilbeault, he says that the Conservatives' attack on the federal carbon tax and its associated rebates is a false premise.
They sound like them.
Yeah, pulled from a flawed parliamentary budget office. A flawed? I can't even speak now. Yeah. A flawed parliamentary budget office.
Again, villainizing our institutions, villainizing people again.
Yes.
Criminals.
So the Canadian Climate Institute, which they definitely have no bias in this whatsoever.
Yeah, it's not like Guilbeault, is on the board of it or anything.
Yeah, says the greatest advantage of carbon pricing is that it reduces emissions at the lowest cost, and that the actual cost-benefit analysis around carbon pricing was left out.
Of course it was.
Yeah. And so the problem we have with this is that when they're talking about these expected benefits and the things that you need to realize, with a stabilized environment and all these things, it's creative writing. It's not real. Mm-hmm. How are you going to be able to predict? Like, you can't even get a good weather prediction for weather as it is based on all the historical data that we have from before, let alone predict into the future what our actions now with a carbon tax, which, by the way, we've had the largest amount of emissions this past year than we've had in any year. So it's not working. So that goes out the window.
It's Fugazi fairy dust.
Yeah, basically. So it's absurd. It's beyond absurd to think that we're going to then alter the climate. And I mentioned this last week, and I'm going to harp on it again because I really do see this as a good path to prosperity. Where's the largest emitters? Oh, it's where we're getting all those immigrants from, and where we're seeing foreign interference. It's India and China. Wow. What can we provide them? Natural gas. What is that going to do? It's actually going to reduce carbon emissions. What's it also going to do? Create wealth for our country. So maybe look into that and stop blaming, what is his name here? Yves something. So, Giro? Giro? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, but what's interesting is that he actually in the finance committee stood up and said, this government is preventing him from sharing the actual analysis
Yep.
with folks.
They muzzled him.
Yeah. They said that he's been told explicitly not to disclose and reference. Because what's basically happened is that the government also did their own report where they looked in the carbon tax. They didn't like what they found. And they're like, we're going to bury that. And they were asking, can we see that? And they said, nope, definitely not. And then when they asked Guibault, when they asked Giro, and they asked him, he said, no, I can't speak to it. They won't let me.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it.
And this is someone who is bipartisan, and they're doing their best to shut him up like they've done to so many others in the 9 years this government's been in power. And it's the same story over and over again. And I love that he's come out saying, I can't say nothing, but I want to say something.
This is where I'm confused though. Why can't he say something? Is he just like, I'm going to lose my job if I do? Like, or is it like there'll be some kind of charge or lawsuit against him if he does? Like, is there some kind of NDA that he had to sign? Like, what is preventing him from speaking?
Yeah, like what is like the legalese behind it?
Yeah.
I'd be curious to look into that too, because we know that it's specifically Trudeau who said that, like, is not allowing it to come out. But I'm curious of like if he just happened to leak it, or like what would happen. I'd be curious of what the ramifications would be for him and his job if he did that. I'm sure he would be fired. Would be the first thing that would happen. But yeah.
Yeah, and like that's my question is like, is there these kind of restrictions then on all these other things that we're seeing that have been muzzled? Like there was actually an Auditor General report that came out about cyber attacks and cybersecurity in Canada, and painting us very woefully prepared for cyber security attacks.
Oh, definitely.
And so when we see that, and that's also not been allowed to be shared.
Yeah.
So why are we paying for all these nonpartisan institutions to develop good research and good reports? Because that's the other part of it too, is that they're doing good work, but they're not allowed to share it. And that's the part that burns me, is that like, why is it then the taxpayer dollars? Like, fund it yourself then out of the Liberal caucus.
Yep.
If you want to keep it all for yourself and you don't want that to be shared, you know what? Like, to pay for it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you're apparently getting all these donations, so let's see it put to use.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like the other problem that I see with this all too is that like the argument is being made, it's for national security. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. These reports that they're putting out there, like we saw the one that the RCMP put out previously that was redacted all to hell, but only left the things that they wanted you to see. Like all these different things, like we paid for those, and they're not going to affect our national security, because obviously our national security is compromised anyway, because you got the friggin' MPs passing along the information.
Yeah.
So that's not an excuse. So open the books. Let us see who interfered. Let us see the results of this carbon tax scheme. Let us see the Auditor General's reports. Let us see it all.
Yeah.
It's time for some transparency, because I've completely lost faith in this government.
And we demand it now. That's what you want to see.
Yeah.
Well, that was a dang good show. We were so grateful to have you all on with us. So much going on. We're looking forward to seeing the comments, seeing what the questions are, and whatever it is you're doing, whether you be going to school,
Fighting the power by calling your MP and demanding that they release the names,
or just trying to enjoy your life with your family, whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are. We love you. We're out.
peace.